What's new, Pussycat? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Emma Cownley. I'm a freelance copywriter and blogger, and today is episode 1 of what I'm potentially calling the Red Flag Chronicles. I've done a couple of videos now on nightmare client stories that I found on Reddit, and you guys seem to find those pretty fucking entertaining. So I thought, hey, wait a minute, how can I make these more valuable and more personal to you? And so I put out a call on Twitter asking you guys for your own nightmare client stories. But most importantly, what the red flags were, why you overlooked them, and what you learned from the experience. Because I thought, hey, this is trauma, sure. It's good old-fashioned trauma, but also it can be useful to other people and might even help a few people avoid these situations in the future. But first, it's time for the housekeeping. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it, and to subscribe to my channel if you feel like you want to support me and hear more from me in the future. You can also buy me a coffee and I will graciously accept it. The link for that is in the description box below. I think that's everything we need to cover. Let's start looking at these horror stories. Oh God. Hi Emma, Happy New Year. I worked with someone in my last in-house job who left after displaying some concerning behaviour towards other people. Years later, they popped up after I'd gone freelance. My instincts told me to give this one a miss, but my wallet overruled them. Things went largely okay for a while until the client moved to a new company and then vanished off the face of the earth when it came to invoicing after I'd completed a large project. Standard. In the end, I wrote to the accounts department and threatened legal action, and it was paid within a week. Judging by the email I got afterwards, the client hadn't got sign-off for the project and hoped I'd eventually go away. It's a story as old as time, but it taught me to trust my instincts. My other big learning was working for a massive multinational where it should have been instantly clear that the huge personality in charge of content creation was going to be a problem. I was inexperienced and got caught between warring stakeholders in a large content creation project. After the 5th rewrite, when the brief changed for the 3rd time, I had to put my big girl pants on and charge them extra. The client was furious and I lost them. It took me years to see that it wasn't my failure as a copywriter that meant the project went south. There were red flags from the very first meeting and I thought I was just getting everything wrong. I'm sorry that this happened to you. One of the overarching themes that I kind of picked out when I was going through a lot of these client horror stories is that people get scared about not making any money, so they take the job anyway despite their better judgment, and it very rarely works out well. Fear of being poor pushes you to do shit that you just wouldn't normally do. It's happened to me. It happened to me last year. It still happens, Also, this fucking ridiculous warring stakeholder shit. This does happen, doesn't it? And you end up kind of, as a freelancer, everything's kind of dumped on you because people don't have to deal with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't have to give a shit about working with you in the future when they've behaved poorly. They can just get rid of you. And you always feel terrible when you lose the client as well, don't you? You're like, fuck, I fucked it up. No, you didn't, mate. They fucked it up. I'm glad that you realised that they fucked it up. I asked for a proper brief. I received a sensory mood board. Like, I'm in kind of two minds about this because you need a proper brief to do the work. But on the other hand, a sensory mood board? I kind of like that. I kind of love the fact that they're kind of giving you a little soundtrack and some colourful themes and if we were a taste, we would be this. Like, that's the kind of thing I would do. I'd be like, here's a brief and here's a sensory experience through a VR headset that places you in the mind's eye of the customer. It's the feeling we want to elicit. I kind of love it, but also it's not helpful or useful. Sorry, Dan. I kind of love it though. Sensory mood board. What the fuck? One of my first ever paid gigs for a sleazy internet marketing guy who wanted a landing page for his Get Abs in 30 Days ebook. This guy already sounds like a fuck boy, doesn't he? To nobody's surprise, he refused to pay the 50% upfront and ghosted me not long after receiving my first draft. That's the thing, right? If somebody pushes back on paying 50% upfront, you're already getting an indication as to how they feel about paying you for your work. Because it's relatively standard to charge 50% upfront. A lot of copywriters, in fact, almost all copywriters I know, and designers and web developers, they ask for 50% upfront. And it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, it's standard in a lot of industries. If you're booking a tattoo, they want a deposit upfront. My dentist took an upfront deposit for a filling this week, a 50% deposit for the work. It's pretty fucking standard. So if someone's going to kick off about it, you kind of have to begin to think, wait a minute. Do you know what I mean? Nuh-uh. When I was very new and naive, I charged a ridiculously low amount to a recruiter. I interviewed one of their staff members and wrote it all up, taking time out of my day to meet them for a coffee. I even paid for the coffee. When I sent the bill for the coffee, they kicked off and said they wouldn't pay for it. Needless to say, it didn't last. They got back in touch after 5 years, a couple of months ago. And when I told them my new 6 times higher prices, they ghosted. Lol. Bye, Felicia. Pie them right off, mate. Pie them right off. It's funny how super low prices really do attract scum of the earth clients. I've mentioned it in a ton of videos that I've made here on this channel when talking about setting your rates, project fees, not being scared to charge a little bit more. And that is because when you're on a really low beginner rate or you're working on platforms like Fiverr or Upwork or Freelancer, you know, those kind of content mill bidding sites, they attract all the very worst clients. If they are penny pinchers who are looking for a bargain, it means that they are more likely to pick over your work, pick at the price, try and haggle you down because they don't give a shit whether or not the content is good. They just want the job done for the cheapest price. And apparently they won't reimburse you for a coffee either. So get to fuck, mate. Get to fuck. Nothing good ever comes from someone looking for a reasonable quote. I know for a fact that me and Ellen Kate Boyle... Sorry, Ellen, I don't know why I said your name like that. I think I was focusing on trying to read it correctly and it came out like an accusation. Sorry. I had the same terrible client at different times who kept changing what they wanted and paid a piddling amount. And Ellen's backed this up. And then they posted on LinkedIn looking for a copywriter and people kept tagging us both. And they haven't updated web copy or blogs since they ended the relationship. Again, we're back to that reasonable quote type of a client. I don't know about you, mate, but I'm beginning to see a fucking pattern in the way that this is panning out. Right, I got a humdinger for you here. This one really affected me when I read it, and after I talked to this person about this experience that they had, they were really grateful that they had been able to talk through it, because the process of talking through it actually... Oh, hello. The process of talking through it really helped them see that it actually wasn't their fault. And that was kind of a nice thing that came out of this whole putting out a social media call for nightmare client jobs, is that quite a few people were able to come to terms with the nightmare that they went through and kind of find some peace. So that was an unexpected outcome. But I will say, brace yourself for this one, because it actually made me feel really upset. So it was a small agency I worked for at the beginning of the pandemic and the very beginning of my freelance career, funnily enough. An illustrator mate of mine put me in touch with the client. I did a bit of initial ad hoc work for them. They had a clear, if not pedantic process, but the money was good. Better than I'd ever had. They loved my work. Clients were happy, everything seemed good. They asked me to do permanent work for them, but I let them know that maintaining my freelance status was important. We negotiated a rate and all was well. Da 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 da. The MD was a real character. Oh, here we go. Yeah. By character, I mean didn't hold back no matter what mood he was in, which was either bouncing off the walls energetic or calling us all twats. The work got more convoluted and our responsibilities seemed to increase more and more. It was very intense, but I was good at it and the money was good. I was grateful to have such a decent gig during a pandemic. Then things quickly turned sour. All the telltale signs were there. Endless demands and amends, constant nitpicking, all the classics. This won't take you long. It's just a few changes. Constantly moving goalposts, etc. The MD openly calling people out for minor things in the Slack chat. Demeaning and patronising. There was no rest. We had to be active and approachable at all hours of the day. The days bled into nights and I found myself working 15 hours a day to keep up. Yet we weren't allowed to speak to clients directly. They thought they owned our arses. But it was work, it was remote, I needed the money, there was a pandemic, what else was I doing? By this point they had me so busy, they were my only client. I carried on but started pushing back when things were too much. Suck it up for now, I thought. Then one Friday morning we were having our weekly catch-up meeting. We went through everything, no big issues. Everyone happy? Great. Have a good weekend, guys. And then we went off to finish the day's tasks. I popped downstairs to make a coffee, but when I got back to my desk, something wasn't right. I tried to log into Slack. Login failed, it said. I tried again, rebooted the laptop, nothing. What the hell's going on, I thought. Then I checked my emails, and there it was. We will be standing you down and won't be looking to commission any further projects in the immediate future. Yeah, I just, even as I read this, I just can't. No notice, no reasoning, no apology, nothing. 9 months of solid work for what? They'd wiped me clean off the system and I basically had nothing to show for almost a year's worth of work. Didn't even get to say so much as a see ya to the people I'd been virtually working alongside every single day. It was a dick move, a power move, and I was in total shock. I felt like an idiot. I closed my laptop and sobbed. What a way to go. At this point, they still owed me £1,300. I got it reluctantly months later. I'm so angry for this person. I'm actually getting a bit tearful because I know this person and they're so fucking nice and so fucking good. Okay, let's turn this. Oh my God, this fucking MD. They better never come across my path, I swear to fuck. I'll give them such a withering look that they'd wish they'd never been born. Let's take something positive out of this. So first and foremost, I'm going to say, never, ever, ever allow one client to make up the majority of your income. Don't ever do that, because when you lose them, you lose everything. You need to spread your risk across multiple client retainers and multiple client relationships so that if somebody drops out or you need to fire someone for your own mental health and your own good, you're not completely screwing yourself over. So the reason that this person didn't feel like they could push back or walk away is because this was the only job they had. They needed the money. It was a fucking pandemic. So again, we find ourselves in a situation where money is driving us to make bad choices because we feel like we've got no choice. We need it. We need the money. I'm going to accept all this bad behavior because we need the fucking money. The second thing is that whole big character situation. And people like that have the ability to make you feel like such a fucking square if you speak up or you say that you don't like the way that they behave. They're like, fuck you, this is just who I am. This is how we do things. This is the modern way of working, and if you don't like it, you can fuck off. And I'd be like, fine, you know what? I think I'll fuck off, thanks. Like, just because you're the manager of the company doesn't mean you can talk to people however you want. Hello, Editing Emma again. That whole big character thing, I've just been thinking, is really, really similar to what cult leaders do when they are conditioning and brainwashing the people in their cults. That whole big personality, kind of foster a culture of anxiety and fear that you maintain at all times. I watched a pretty good video on cult leaders, which I'll leave in the description box below just in case you're interested. But it's a really, really similar concept, which is kind of fucking worrying, isn't it? Something to think about. Fucking hell. I'm so angry for this person. And to be taken off with no warning. The panic that would cause. That... God, I'm so mad right now. Fucking hell. I had a hell of a time with a client last year. Initial warning signs, asking for constant additions. By the way, I've always wondered how to nail down my ideal client. Do you have any tips? By the way, I wrote this 2,000 word article. Can you have a look at it and let me know if it's worth promoting and how I might do it? Are you around to have a quick call on this aspect of your briefing document? And so on. I took it as a newbie who just needed reassurance. Big mistake. I had a few weeks of being treated like an employee and constantly pecked at, trying to deep breathe, thinking all this extra info will mean I really nail this first draft. Ha ha ha. First draft, 2 pages of web copy, came back with 7 pages of utterly ridiculous notes. Learn to tell the difference between inexperience, which you often get with small business owners, and massive insecurity / not knowing what they want. Turned out her husband worked in comms, so she'd run the first draft past him. Instant fail. Reader, I refunded the deposit and ran. That person was clearly never going to be happy, even if I'd laid a golden flippin' egg. Yes, I made this mistake last year. I had a brand new client who did not have any idea whatsoever how to work with a freelancer, or they didn't really understand what was required for the job that they were asking for. And they didn't even give me a written brief, which means they were free to change the brief and the requirement and the job however they wanted, because there was no official documentation which outlined the scope of what I was supposed to do. And it's the same thing here, right? When you can tell they don't really know what they're looking for and they don't really know what they want, you have to push back and say you've got a lot more work to do before you're ready to come and have me write something. You're going to need this, this, and this. And until I have that, I'm not going to be able to help you out here. If you don't do that, you will be facing constant twisting, turning, changes and demands, which are going to make you feel insecure. And as a creative person, the only way to truly let loose and be really free and creative is if you feel safe and secure to do so, right? You have to know that you're working within set parameters, and then you can get crazy. You can't get free and crazy if you don't know what the fuck you're really supposed to be doing, right? Also, it forces that person to really get clear on what they want before they work with you. And again, this is easier said than done. If you're desperate for the money or you really need work, you're going to try and snatch that job, kind of believing that you can do the work as you go. And it doesn't really work like that. You have to be a really strong, confident, experienced character to kind of be able to mitigate that relationship. Fuck this. You know what? This person did the right thing. Refund the deposit, get the hell out of there, because that relationship is never gonna work. Well, now that you're all sufficiently traumatized, that's my work done. If you've got a nightmare client story that you would like to share with me, you can find me on Twitter or LinkedIn and drop me a little DM, and we can look at getting that in the next video. As I said, I've got fucking tons of these. This didn't even scratch the surface. So maybe I'll put out another one in a couple of months' time, and we can look at more of your trauma and what can be learned from it and how to avoid that shit in the future. Until then, I guess I'll see you back here, same time, same place in 2 weeks for more Kiss My A's. Take care. Peace out.